That's not good. So let's get started. So you ever have a nice big piece of wood and you got to do a project with it, and you get it all set up, you put it on your nice flat table, and it just rocks like crazy like this. It's just twisted and out of square. And today I'm going to show you how to deal with straightening out a hockey stick kind of wood. There's a few prerequisites though to do this, and the first one is we have to mill this down a bit. So you can't, if you need a final piece of say 3 inches and your piece is rocking is 3 inches, you're kind of screwed. You can't add wood back, of course. But I only need 2.5 inches, and this is 3. So basically what that means is I have half an inch of room to take this rock out. That is no bueno. So first things first is I need to find the flattest, most square edge of the piece of wood that I'm going to work with here. And in order to do that, I'm going to put it on this really nice flat metal table that we have here from Jointer. And then we're going to send it through to make sure that it's square. So what I always do is just make sure my fence is not moved at all. You can see that is nuts on perfect. I don't even think that's 64th out. It's just perfect. So that means that as long as I keep my piece tight here and tight here all the way through, pass it a few times, it's going to flatten out that corner. And then it gives me a straight edge to start from. So on this unit here, I have a helical cutter head. So what that is a whole bunch of different blades here. I think it's like 100 or something like that. And I can actually turn these 4 times if I need to, if they start to get chipped or dull or whatever. I'm trying to be really careful here because they're crazy sharp. And these are moving at an incredibly fast rate, so it actually leaves a really, really nice finish. And I have this set up so it'll take off about 1/16 of wood. So that these two tables are parallel. So this one to this one is parallel, but it's out by 1/16 currently. So that means this one is lower than this one. So these cutter heads will take off 1/16 of wood. Now that all the explanations are out of the way, let's make some sawdust. I got my apron on today because this fur is really sappy. Okay, so I'm nice and tight here in the corner, as tight as I can. You can see how twisted that is, but it's just going to go it's going to be less and less twisted every time I pass it through. So this might take a few passes because it's pretty bad. And what you want is, as soon as you can hear it cutting the entire time, from the start of the wood to the end of the wood, that means that it's consistent all the way through. And then we start checking it for square and flatness. So it's not cutting at all right now. Oh, there we go. A little bit. So that's pretty bad. So just so you can see how bad it is, it didn't cut anything here. It cut a tiny bit there, nothing here. It cut a little here, nothing here, little here. So this thing is just like a spaghetti noodle. So we're gonna straighten this whole thing out here. So I'm gonna send it through a few more times. It might take a little bit. Of course, for this video, I'm using a gigantic piece. So that was way better. You can just hear how much better it is. So almost this whole thing here is cut and flat already. So maybe 2 more passes probably, because it's not getting this end. it sounded like got all the way through. Not quite. So you can see just this little portion here is not quite good, but it's getting this whole thing all the way. So maybe one pass and it should do it now. And there we go. So now it's been flat all the way through. And now that the bottom is flat, I have a nice straight edge to work off of. So what I'm going to do now is run this through the table saw, because right now this is 12 inches, or was before I started running it through the jointer, but I need a 10.5. So now I have my straight edge. I'm going to send it through the table saw against the fence, the good side against the fence, and we're going to rip it down so that it's the right size around. Of course, I would prefer to square this up completely on the jointer before I do the table saw, but since my jointer is 12 inches and it's actually like 11 3/4, and this piece is 12 inches, I can't actually square it up and send it through first. So with a much smaller piece, I would do that before I cut on the table saw, so that I know I have like a nice perfectly square edge. But this is just how we're going to have to do it on this one, and I can always go back and joint if I had to, but this should be very, very close, especially for our application. These are going to be stairs, stair treads. So I have 18 of these to do. So now these two edges are at least parallel. We've done nothing to the gap yet, as you can see. It's still a hockey stick, and it even has a little bit of a banana. That's exaggerating, but it does kind of have a banana shape right now. So we're going to take it back to the jointer. We're going to put our same square edge here that we've been working with against the fence, and we're going to put the banana side down so that the telephone is hung up, because it is much easier to get this edge here square than it is to do the happy face square, in my experience anyway. So let's get at it. Well, it is a lot lighter now. It's nice. Not that it's overly heavy before, but okay. So you can see how nice and tight this is, or at least I hope you can. And we're in as tight as we can get all the way, and this is going to be the same story. So it's not cutting right now, and it cuts a little bit at the end. So again, this is really bad. So it's only cut. So that first pass only cut this little corner, and it's almost always twisted. It's this corner. It'll be the opposite corner if it's twisted like that, and that's fine. That's normal. So we're gonna run this thing through a few more times. It's nice. You can see it's touching all the way along here. Nice and flat. Just checking a couple more spots. Money in the bank. Perfect. And just kind of for shits and giggles, I'm going to check the bottom side. So we're real parallel. Now that we're square on the bottom and both sides, I can take it to the planer and just plane it down to the thickness that we want to work with. In this case, it's 2.5, okay? So what I want to do, and I'm curious, I haven't even measured this yet, is to see what we're at now. Because I took a whole bunch off when I had to flatten it on the jointer. So I was at 3, now I'm at about 2 7/8. So I lost about an eighth just in flattening. So this side here was twisted from one side down to the kitty corner 1/8, and that was causing that rock. But 1/8 over this distance is not that terrible, but remember this, these are going to be stairs, and you're going to feel every little rock or bump, and we don't want any of that. So I'm at the planer now, and we locate it right beside the jointer because this process I do pretty much for every single piece of wood that I ever use, unless it's plywood. What the planer does is make the board parallel. So if you have a big banana and you send it through, it will come out the other side a thinner banana, if that makes sense. So that's why we send it through the jointer first, so that it's nice and flat. So then when we go to the planer, all it's going to do is make it parallel. But if it's already flat, it's going to stay flat and go through. So that's what we're going to do now. So here's my beautiful Craft X planer. It's a 20-inch, and I love this thing. It's a helical head, again, just like the jointer. And all I got to do is spin this every time I go through, and it just raises and lowers. And every time I send it through, I just lower it another spin, which is like maybe an eighth. I have to come down about 3/8 of an inch to get my board the final dimension. It's 2.5 inches thick. I already have it 10.5 inches wide, and I have it 4'7" length. So those are all bang on. Now I just have to get my width down, and sending it through here maybe 3 times, and that'll be that. Because it's a pretty aggressive machine, a lot of wood chips coming off this guy. There we go. So kind of the same story with the jointer. So this top part wasn't flat, obviously, because it's cut here to here. So that means this whole corner is a low spot all the way to here, and then this side is a low spot. Remember, we said kitty corner. It's almost always kitty corner, okay? So now I just got to send this through a few more times to get it down to the thickness. I bet this next one, it'll be down far enough that it'll get the whole thing. See how much sawdust is coming off this thing in the dust collector. It's crazy. So it's been through 3 times now. We're just going to take a measurement here, and you can see we're getting really close to 2.5 inches. We need to go one really light pass, and we'll get our final dimension. Okay, so now that I've gone through here, I'm just going to double check everything. So we are 2.5, bang on. We're 10.5, bang on. And I wanted this to be just a touch under 4'7", which it is, just by the 32nd, so it can actually fit in the groove. And we are square. So that is how you solve a big problem of trying to work with a hockey stick and making it fine finish woodworking. And now I have to do that 17 more times. Wish me luck.